Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to Madam Sumafiati and to all. My name is Muhammad Nur Haikal bin Muhammad Raub and my matrix number is 2021204818 and I'm going to present my part, which is introduction. Resurgent inflation devours Venezuelans' income, leaving people hungry and scrambling to buy food and medicines since neither dollars nor bolivars are sufficient. Hunger is common in Venezuela, which endured years of hyperinflation in the second half of the past decade as President Nicolas Maduro produced money to cover its obligations during a drop in oil prices. Many Venezuelans were forced to scavenge among rubbish for food, and millions abandoned the nation to start new lives in South America and elsewhere. In 2019, Maduro lifted currency regulations, allowing for de facto dollarization. Inflation plummeted to single digits for approximately a year when conventional economic strategies such as reducing credit expansion, lowering government expenditure, and boosting taxes were combined. However, by late 2022, Venezuela's household inflation had begun to rise rapidly. As the globe dealt with rising inflation in the aftermath of the coronavirus outbreak, Venezuela's price growth has been encouraged by rising demand for dollars, higher government expenditure, and the devaluation of the bolivar, raising worries of an upcoming era of hyperinflation. Despite Venezuelans who profited from dollarization through transfer or salary payment are being impacted through rises in prices, while those earning in bolivars have seen their meager incomes decrease even further.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to Madam Sumafiati and all my friends. My name is Melissa Iliana binti Marzuki, matrix number 2021606526. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about the definition of terms of inflation, demand pull, and cost push. First and foremost, inflation. The term inflation refers to an increase in prices, which over time results in a loss of buying power. The average price rise of a group of chosen goods and services over time may be used to determine the pace at which buying power is decreasing. A unit of money now essentially has less purchasing power than it had in earlier times due to the increase in prices, which is often stated as a percentage. Deflation, on the other hand, is characterized by a drop in prices and an increase in buying power. The next one is demand pull. The phenomenon known as demand pull inflation occurs when the growth in demand for products or services outpaces the growth in supply of those goods and services. Demand pull inflation happens when there is a rise in aggregate demand, but the supply either stays the same or goes down. Prices for products and services are driven upward when there is a gap between the amount of supply and the amount of demand that is developing. Last but not least is cost push. When we experience increasing prices as a result of greater costs of manufacturing, as well as higher costs of raw materials, we are experiencing cost push inflation. The supply side variables that affect the rate of cost push inflation include things like rising salaries and higher energy costs. Inflation caused by rising costs, on the other hand, is distinct from demand pull inflation, which arises when aggregate demand increases at a higher rate than aggregate supply. Cost push inflation may result in slower economic development and often brings about a decline in living standards, although one that frequently turns out to be only temporary.
Moving on to type and causes of inflation. The main factor of hyperinflation occurs in Venezuela was due to the Venezuelan government excessive printing of the bolivar, which resulted in a decrease in the value of the bolivar itself. As a result of the cycle, the money has lost its value. So there are two types of inflation that can be applied for addressing Venezuela's inflationary situation, which are demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. The first one is demand pull inflation. In Venezuela, inflation began when the government printed money of the Venezuelan bolivar, which increased the money supply to the country since it is the fastest way than borrowing or earning money through tax revenue collection during times of crisis. Along with that, the money supply will increase among the households. So when Venezuelans have more money, their purchasing power rises, allowing them to demand more goods and services in the country to maximize their satisfaction as households. On the other hand, due to the fact that there are higher number of customers, the quantity supply of goods and services will be lower than the quantity of demand, and so the business will have to raise their prices due to shortage. Thus, the price of goods and services rises and contributes to inflation in Venezuela. Next is cost-push inflation. As a result of decrease in value of bolivars, the cost of production input increased as well as the price of goods and services in order for the producers to cover up all costs incurred in the production by shifting the burdens to consumers. Regarding the issue, Venezuelans were struggling and did not have sufficient income to afford in buying foods and medicine to fulfill their needs that leaves them hungry as the value of their currency is very low. Many Venezuelans were forced to scavenge among rubbish for food, and millions abandoned the nation to start new lives in South America and abroad. Venezuelans who made money from dollarization through transfer or wages are likewise feeling the pinch, while those earning in bolivars have seen their meager incomes from decrease even more. Hence, higher costs incurred by the producers in the production of goods and services increases the rate of inflation in Venezuela.
In Venezuela, hyperinflation has been a persistent problem since 2016, and it continues to afflict the country in 2023. The causes are rooted in the government mismanagement, including price and currency controls, deficit spending, and excessive money printing. The drop in oil prices has further exacerbated the situation, as Venezuela heavily relies on oil exports for revenue. Other than that, fiscal penalties have restricted Venezuela's access to foreign markets, implying the inflationary pressures. And because of this, Venezuela are suffering from shortages of basic necessities, extreme poverty, and social unrest affecting the population. From 2017 to 2018, the graph shows a concerning trend of rapid inflation. It soared to an all-time high of 65,374.08%, causing severe economic instability. In 2019, while the inflation rate remained high at 19,906.02%, there was a slight decrease compared to the previous year. Subsequent years saw a gradual decline in the inflation rate. In 2020, it was 2,355.15%, and in 2021, it further decreased to 1,588.51%. The graph shows a decrease in inflation rate in 2022, with a recorded rate of 200.91%. Looking ahead to 2023, there is an expected further decrease to 399.98%. Even if there's a decline in inflation rates, it's essential to note that they remain alarmingly high, continuing to impact the lives of Venezuelans and the overall economy.
Starting from the year 2016, Venezuela has been experiencing significant economic challenges and hyperinflation. The country's monetary policy has been marked by a number of actions aimed at dealing with these problems. Venezuela needs to develop a monetary strategy that can manage the money supply and interest rates in order to lower inflation. Venezuela's central bank can employ a variety of measures, including changing interest rates, the credit channel, and gold standards. First and foremost, exchange rates. It is a crucial channel for communicating monetary policy, especially in open economies. Implementing a system of stable exchange rates that allows the domestic currency to be paired with a foreign currency or a basket of currencies. This may serve as a nominal anchor for inflation and limit the potential for monetary expansion. The value of the domestic currency typically increases as interest rates rise. Demand and appreciation are eternally linked. The demand for the currency increases as the value increases. Trade balance, interest rates, government policy, and business cycles are the reasons of currency appreciation. When represented in national currency, the influence here lowers the price level of items that can be traded internationally. Secondly, the credit channel. The central bank has encouraged banks to charge high interest rates for bank loans, which will result in fewer loans being made to people and business, discouraging consumption and investment. The banking system can limit credit by high purchase for the minimum down payment and maximum repayment time for high purchase contracts. Last but not least, gold standards. Implementing the gold standard in Venezuela or any other country would entail pegging the currency's value to a specific amount of gold. The Venezuela Central Bank are required to keep enough gold reserve to support the currency in circulation. Adopting the gold standard in Venezuela might potentially bring some stability to the currency and address hyperinflation. Due to the fact that the value of the currency will be based on a physical and limited resource like gold, the gold-backed currency would instill confidence in both domestic and foreign investors.
Fiscal policy refers to the financial strategies implemented by the national government through changes in spending or taxation. There are two types of fiscal policy. The first one is contractionary fiscal policy, and the second one is expansionary fiscal policy. Contractionary fiscal policy aims to lower aggregate demand and address sluggish economic expansion. The main objectives of contractionary fiscal policy are to control inflationary pressures and reduce budget deficits. Government actions to achieve contractionary fiscal policy include reducing government spending, raising taxes, or implementing both measures simultaneously. Decreased government spending can help decrease inflationary pressures by reducing demand for goods and services. Raising taxes reduce disposable income and consumer expenditure, leading to contractionary effects. Contractionary fiscal policy is typically employed to address significant budget deficits or excessive inflation. However, contractionary fiscal policy can have negative consequences such as reduced spending on social welfare, infrastructure, and public investment. Higher taxes can burden individuals and businesses, potentially leading to decreased economic activity and job growth. The implementation of contractionary fiscal policy should consider current economic conditions, the potential effects on different industries, and the long-term impacts on economic stability and growth.
Hello, my name is Mabel Faith, matrix ID 2021628984, and I will be talking about the direct measures. Firstly, price control. Venezuela should set maximum prices for essential goods to prevent unreasonable increases in prices. Other than that, control export and import. Limit imports, encourages local spending, and strengthens the economy. Other than that, the government should enforce laws against price increase. This legal action helps to prevent price gouging and unfair practices in the market. Government should also establish specialized units to monitor and punish exploiting businesses. All these are direct measures to help Venezuela seek economic equilibrium that balances short-term relief and long-term sustainability. Thank you.
Inflation is a common economic issue faced by all nations, but if it doesn't harm a country significantly, it can be beneficial. However, in Venezuela, inflation has been a persistent problem due to government mismanagement, including pricing and currency control, deficit spending, and excessive money printing. Declining oil prices and fiscal penalties imposed by other countries have worsened the inflation situation. In 2019, the country temporarily improved inflation by implementing measures like limiting credit expansion, cutting government spending, and raising taxes. However, the coronavirus outbreak has led to a rise in inflation globally, affecting Venezuela as well. Factors such as increased dollar demand, higher government spending, and devaluation of the local currency have generated concerns of hyperinflation. To control and reduce inflation, Venezuela should focus on fiscal and monetary policies. Monetary policies could include stable exchange rates, higher interest rates on bank loans, and possibly implementing the gold standard. Fiscal policies might involve increasing taxes, reducing government spending, and addressing unsustainable production. Direct measures like price control, enforcement against unreasonable price increase, and better control of exports and imports can also be considered.